Well, Grant, let's go to the disappointing team. You're up. Who do you have
Well,
the told you so
I
team?
told
Excuse
you
me.
so
That
team.
wraps up. We wrapped up disappointing team. Who
You
is your
know,
told you so?
Dylan, you touched on this team, and I kind of had some faith in them this year to start this year to win the division. I'm again going to go with the Detroit Lions. Just and more or less maybe the Detroit Lions offensive line. I
I
really want to
think
give
you were
those.
the only one that actually picked the Lions to win
I was because
to
when I
win the
kind of gave
North.
my story, yeah, Ethan goes, "Oh my God, he's going to pick the Lions," and yeah, I'm going to stick to my guns. But just because the toughness and the grit that Dan Campbell has, and like what you said with the uh, the two guys from the previous regime, Decker, Frank Ragnow, and with their first draft pick, getting Penei Sewell in that organization, they wanted to be a downhill running team. They were going to be physical, dominate the line of scrimmage to match Dan Campbell's opening press conference when he took the job. We're going to match the toughness and the grit of this city. Sure, you can knock us down, but we're going to get back up. We're going to bite your kneecap. All that other stuff. This offensive line has been doing that all year. Another 36 carries for 143 yards and 3 touchdowns on Sunday. The Lions know when they're at their best, we can run the ball and Jared Goff can go off the play action. Just like when he made it to the Super Bowl with the Rams. It's that same recipe. Jared Goff's a good player, but he's not a great player. And with this offensive line just kind of dominating all year, that was their answer whenever the Vikings felt like they felt comfortable in this game. And, the defense for the Lions made plays when they needed to. With those 4 turnovers, but just that offensive line, how they just dominated this game and took it over. But that was my reasoning when I said they'd win the division before the year. And now that they won it after a game like that, that's my I told you so team.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've had I was thinking about this over the week or while on Sunday watching the games. But there are certain teams that if a quarterback wins a Super Bowl playing for this team, they automatically go to the Hall of Fame. I labeled it down to 3 here, and I don't know if there's any teams that you would add to this, Grant, and if not, if there is, feel free to add on. But the Lions are number 1.
Yep.
Number 2, the Cleveland Browns. 3, the Minnesota Vikings. Now, because the Lions, they've been down for so long. They haven't been to an NFC Championship game since '93. They've been the lovable losers.
Could I add one team?
Yes.
The New York Jets.
Well, yeah. I was going based off of teams that haven't won one.
Teams that
but,
okay.
Since they haven't won it in 6 decades, you could, for the sake of argument, yeah, you could. I could probably say that.
I see where you're going now.
But I mean, you look at the Lions, who are just an abysmal franchise. Most of it for the majority of our lifetime, their fans have been showing up with trash bags on their head.
Yes.
And it's been terrible management, terrible coaching, terrible front office hires, and they finally have gotten a guy. And usually, when it felt like they finally had some good momentum going, they were on the upward trajectory. For some reason, they didn't think it was good enough. They fire their head coach. Jim Caldwell. Example 1. And the Vikings, they've been close. They had the Purple People Eaters in the 60s and the 70s. And maybe, I don't know, maybe this is just regionality bias. But, they've been snake bitten. You look at the 98 game when they were going to go, Gary Anderson hadn't missed a kick in 2 years, misses a chip shot field goal that would have put him into the Super Bowl. The Bounty Bowl in the 2009 championship game, the 3, I believe 3 of the 4 Super Bowls in the 60s and 70s, they were favorites in and laid an absolute egg. And then the Cleveland Browns. What more needs to be said? One other team that has never made it to the Super Bowl. They've been downtrodden. They've been just the kind of the butt of a lot of jokes. They've been the Browns. They've been the Brown of the of the NFL, if you will.
Bum.
Yeah, that did not land how I thought it was going to land, but everybody got what I was saying. And right now, I mean, Joe Flacco is looking like the guy, and he's had a good NFL career. We're seeing a resurgence of him now. If somehow, I don't think this is going to happen, but by the grace of God, he finds himself in the Super Bowl with the Cleveland
He's in the Hall
Browns.
of Fame.
Send him off to Canton. He's going to the Hall of Fame.
Send him into the Hall of Fame.
He doesn't need to wait the 5 years. Is it 5 or 7 years?
5 years.
5 years to go. You just send him in because Cleveland is just a terribly run franchise. Browns fans are about as passionate as they come in the NFL. And that's the other part too, is the passion the fan base has where they deserve that, just because I want to see the parade. And just to see those fans have their moment in the sun.
So two things, Dylan. We thought the Cavaliers parade in the summer of 2016 was electric. This would be a whole nother level.
Oh, yeah.
A whole nother level. But if Joe Flacco were to somehow win the Super Bowl for the Browns, the two organizations he won it for would be the Baltimore Ravens, the team who fled Cleveland and said, you don't deserve pro football, and then to come back after all the quarterback injuries for the Browns this year, from the pickleball court to throwing 400 yards in a game. Joe Flacco, like you said, put him in the Hall of Fame, and you know what? God damn it, name the Super Bowl MVP trophy after him. The Super Bowl MVP, your Joe Flacco Super Bowl MVP award. That's who it should be.
And an honorable mention, and they screwed this up because they moved cities, but if the Chargers stayed in San Diego, I would throw them in there.
Yeah.
But now they don't have any fans, and they very dysfunctional. And you could maybe make the argument for the Arizona Cardinals, but they're just kind of a bleh organization where there's just nothing about them. Like they're just kind of that. I don't want to say they're an irrelevant franchise, but you can tell the story of the NFL without the Arizona Cardinals.
And once every 6 to 7 years, they're going to do something magical. But then besides that, they're just anywhere between a 6-11 to a 3-14 team.
Yeah.
With the cheap owner, horrible facilities, but they're in a state where people wouldn't mind going to end their career at and say, you know what? I should live here. This is a pretty nice community. Football sucks, but I'm towards the tail end of my career, so I want to live here.
Yeah, exactly. But no, kind of get back on track.
Well, you know what? Joe Burrow's almost done this, but Cincinnati's had success.
Yeah, Cincinnati. They've been to the Super Bowl. They haven't gotten over that hump.
Yeah.
I guess with the the Bengals. I mean, you could maybe throw the Bills in there too.
Well, no, the Bills, they being there 4 times around the 90s, they're kind of a snake-bitten franchise, but they're not inept like they were in when we were in middle school, in high school. But Sean McDermott now, he's kind of got he's got this thing figured out where they're a well-run organization. I wouldn't throw the Bills in there. But for the Bengals, that Super Bowl run in 21 was magical. But I think, it struck midnight. And they were lucky Odell got hurt in that game, because if he doesn't get hurt, the Rams win that game by 17 points. The season that I think is going to haunt Cincinnati fans forever is when Carson Palmer tore his ACL.
Yeah, the first play in the...
That first play,
you're
or that first drive.
Absolutely right on that one.
Yeah, that's that 05 year, because let's be honest, they probably would have at least gotten there in the AFC that year.
So I'm trying to think, who went that year? Was it? It was the Steelers.
It was the Steelers. Yeah.
You're right. Yep. Yeah, that was the year they beat the Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Back to told you so teams, and mine's going to be a team that's going to be starting a new quarterback this week. It's the Denver Broncos. I was never high on this list, and I always thought Sean Payton was a good coach. Now being Mike McCarthy coaching the Cowboys, I've kind of woken up to the fact that I don't know, this is a bit of a backhanded compliment in a sense, because I do think they're both good coaches, but I've always said Sean Payton is Mike McCarthy with a better PR rep. If you do a blind resume test, their resumes are very similar.
Mike McCarthy's probably got a better winning percentage over his career than Sean Payton.
He probably does, actually, because Sean Payton had a couple of rough years right after they made after his first year. They were kind of down for a couple of years because their defense was absolutely atrocious.
And then they had the 3-year stretch from like 14 to 16 where they were 7-9.
Yeah, and that was
Mm-hmm.
And they just benched Russell Wilson for contractual reasons. So his time in Denver is done and over with.
Tick.
I'm talking about this week when they play the Patriots. Like, Sean Payton's finger pointing everywhere. If you saw his press conference today about how, well, I can't bench five, I can't get 5 new receivers, I can't get 5 new offensive linemen, where he's just pointing fingers, pointing blame at everybody else, but without looking in the mirror, because he is the reason they lost the game on Christmas Eve. Where decides to take 2 timeouts, where he's going to get the ball with maybe 10 seconds left in the game at their own 10. So what are you going to do with that? You're going to take a knee, go to overtime. So decides to take his timeouts. Belichick just goes, all right, whatever. I mean, we got nothing. We've got nothing to lose. So we're going to go let Zeke eat 2 big runs and then go over the top and get into field goal range, kick a game winner. And they found themselves to be in a spot where they could potentially sneak into the playoffs, because they'd have the tiebreaker over Buffalo. They would have the tiebreaker over Buffalo, and potentially may have been a team that nobody wanted to see in the playoffs. But they screw it up. They come out, lay an egg against Houston. Last week they did they lose last week? I'm trying to think here.
Yeah, they did. Who did they lose to? They laid the egg against Detroit.
That's right. That was a Saturday game. They got absolutely destroyed by the Lions at Ford Field, and that was when you saw Sean Payton lay into Russell Wilson, which you could tell that that's just not something that this marriage is over. And
yeah, a coordinator and a quarterback can yell at each other, not the head coach, though.
Yeah.
You never saw Belichick and Brady screaming at each other, and if they did, it was behind the scenes.
Yeah, and now with Russell, it's very, very interesting, because I'm going around and I'm looking at teams like, I don't know who would want to sign him. I don't know what his market is.
I don't think
is he out of the league?
He doesn't have much of a market. Someone will take a chance on him. I heard Colin say that watch out for Tennessee, and I'm thinking, Colin, you are so stupid. Mike Vrabel has the same personality as Sean Payton. He's not going to want to bring that guy on. But an interesting one I thought is this, when Cowherd said this, just because they have new ownership and they're trying to make a splash and they're desperate, would be Washington. And Dylan, you would applaud that move.
But every quarterback is potentially going to Washington. So we've heard that for the last 25 years.
But to your point, where else will Russell go? He's not going to Arizona. He's not going to Houston. They're not going to. Why would the Raiders want him? Kansas City's not going to take him. The Vikings don't need him. You got to think the Packers are going to go with Jordan Love. Chicago, if they're not taking Justin Fields, they're going Caleb Williams. The Giants are going to take Drake May, or Jaden Daniels. But to your point, his options are limited. Tampa Bay.
You're saying they're not unlimited?
That is correct.
Oh, you set that one up on a silver platter there.
Right there.
I appreciate that.
A little soft toss there for you, bud.